So welcome to concurrent session A5, Co-Designing Stepped Care 2.0 Model of Care Change at CMHA Hamilton. My name is Sarah. I'm joined by my colleague Jazz, and we will be your facilitators for this session. But before we get started, we're going to go through some quick housekeeping notes, and then I'll introduce our speakers, and they'll start the session. So I'll just draw your attention to the bottom of your screen where you'll find the Zoom toolbar. You can use the Q&A feature to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll review the questions and then at the end of the session do our best to answer as many as possible in the time that we have. Please ensure that your mic is on mute until we get to the Q&A portion of the session. We're going to be recording the session to upload to the conference website for future viewing by anyone who had registered for the conference. And you'll be able to access that platform for 90 days following the conference. And also a reminder to everyone that we have closed captioning for all of our sessions. So please click on the CC icon below the video window on your screen so that you can access that function. And we kindly ask everyone to complete the evaluation for the session by clicking on the session in the agenda on the virtual platform. There will be a survey button at the bottom of the session next to the join button. Your feedback is very appreciated, and we use it to inform future events such as this conference. We also respectfully ask that all those attending today's session engage with each other thoughtfully and always consider the impact of your words and interactions on others. As facilitators, we will not tolerate any abusive or inappropriate behavior or hate speech, and will ensure that anyone who engages in that behavior is removed from the session. If you've been disturbed or affected by such an event, please do what you need to do for yourself to take a break, step outside, practice some deep breathing, and/or reach out to someone that you trust. If you're in crisis and require immediate support, please click on the FAQ icon in the conference homepage to access contact information for Connex Ontario. And if you would like to report an incident, please contact the event manager, Sherry Sim, by either clicking on the assistance button in the top right of the menu bar on your screen to send an email, or you can send Sherry a text at 416-605-5975. And I'm now happy to be introducing our presenters for this session. Joining us today, we have Mary Ellen Ruddell, who is the Director of Peer Support Services at CMHA Hamilton and the Director of Clinical Services at Hamilton Program for Schizophrenia. And we also are joined by Harrison Wheeler, who is the Peer Support Worker and Recovery College Implementation Specialist at CMHA Hamilton. Mary Ellen and Harrison, I'll hand it to you.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I'm going to do the most difficult part of the session, which is share my screen, as you know. So we'll get this started and move forward. And there we go. Amazing. Okay. Hello again, everybody. We're here to try to answer the question, can you co-design large-scale change in your organization? And as you think that through, spoiler alert, yes. And so Harrison and I are going to talk a bit about our problems. We're going to set the stage. We're going to walk through what we did and try to give some thoughts around how we did it, why we did it, and hopefully it will land well with you for your own organization. So we're gonna activate this like you're watching a movie, and we're gonna walk through, with any good movie or book, one of the questions that keep us on the edge of our seat is, how are you going to solve the problem that they present? So with the guiding light of our conference theme, empowering community through innovative intervention, we are really hopeful that we can show you how we thought through what we perceived as an innovative intervention and how we empowered the community. And our community included clients and staff and stakeholders to respond to the problems facing access at CMHA Hamilton. So that was the problem. We know that's a problem across our province for the population that HSJCC serves. And so let's walk through our inciting incident. We're going to discuss the actors that came together to solve the problem and how we built out the plot to make it work.
Hey, yeah. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Harrison Wheeler. I am a peer support worker here at CMHA Hamilton, and my role today basically is to serve as one of the protagonists, I should say, of our story. The other protagonist being CMHA itself. Um, yeah, I'll just jump right in. I have lived with bipolar for over 25 years and so, uh, endured an addiction for almost as long. And I didn't realize until joining CMHA that my experiences with my mental health issues and my addiction were actually an asset that could be used to help fulfill other people's destinies and journeys. Um, when I was convalescing as a former consumer of mental health services and practices, there I felt were holes in the kind of support that I was able to get as I went through my recovery journey, gaps in service, as it were. Didn't feel like I was really being spoken to as a human. My own, sorry, I'm losing my words here. My own issues with someone with an illness, feeling lesser than or wrongfully stigmatized by my own mental health, and with others. So that's kind of where I began my journey coming to CMHA, not really realizing that what I had endured before was actually an asset moving forward. And with CMHA, they in turn wanted to find a new ending and subsequently a new beginning to my story and to other people's stories like mine, which is why co-design and SC 2.0 and the others, people lived and lived the experience, realized there was a power behind their experience and a lot of potential to share, and they wanted to bring people in to do that.
Yeah, and I think Harrison, truly, and folks in the audience, this is a story we've heard before. This is this is a point that we've recognized, and we'll talk a bit about our peer support program at CMHA, but Harrison's story is unique to him, and some of the points about it is what we've already heard. And so really being able to tap into that, recognizing that there's actors and there's players out there that can really be of asset, was something we really wanted to do. So thanks for starting that story off, Harrison. And what we wanted to what CMHA Hamilton really wanted to do was find a different adventure to Harrison's story. So those choose your own adventure kind of stories that we have, and movies with different endings that you can go to. When we thought about intervention, timely intervention, and access to the population that are served by CMHA Hamilton, again, the HSJCC population, I just want to take you back to CMHA Hamilton in 2021. Okay, so you all know, not to be too traumatizing here, but yes, that was the pandemic. It was impacting everything. And our intensive case management services sat at an 18 to 24 month wait list. Hamilton had declared a crisis, an emergency on all kinds of things, and we knew that access was already difficult for the population that we served. So not only did we want to reduce the time to services, that's one part of it, but we really wanted to increase the options and the access. So timeliness, options, and the way we access. So that meant, and you can think through in your own organization, what would that mean? How do we do that? It meant for us that we needed to find an innovative way to add and increase lower barrier services, because we know that's where the sort of the best outcome can be found for the dollars that we spend. So it's a way to provide increased autonomy, to potential and current clients. We also knew we needed to shift the way we thought about the way our services were provided. So again, we didn't just want to find a different adventure for Harrison, but we wanted to reduce our wait times for ICM. We wanted to ensure those efforts weren't wasted. So we know, you all know this too, research tells us time and time again that the best way to make sure that the efforts you put in as healthcare providers is to do change with co-design. So on to our poll, and I think, Sarah, I think this is over to you for some tech parts of this, right? All right, so we have our first question here. Have you ever co-designed a change project that impacted your entire organization? And also, do you think it's possible? I loved people who weren't sure. That's so fabulous. I love it. I also am very excited that most people think it's possible, and some people are not sure. So you're in the right place, which is really great, because what we'll hopefully try to do is set you all up for understanding how we can do that. So I think that's probably everybody who's going to add to that.
Yes, I've
Yes,
just shared the results for you to take a quick look at.
excellent. Okay, share results. Do
Oh,
I click on share results?
oh,
Oh,
there we go. Are we seeing it?
I think so.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah,
you, Kim. All right,
amazing.
I'll stop sharing now.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So I'm just going to click out of that too, and then we'll move on. So keeping that in mind, we'll hopefully give you some answers, some thoughts. We'll have some good discussion at the end. There will absolutely be time for that. So our cast of characters. Every good movie and book needs a cast of characters. And for us, Harrison alluded to this a little bit, our cast of characters was Stepped Care 2.0, generally speaking, as a concept, as an innovative intervention, our peers, and essentially our people with lived and living experience, and then co-design was a significant cast member. So let's just talk a little bit about Stepped Care 2.0. I'm not sure, I'm sure people in the audience know about Stepped Care 2.0. But if not, I'll just briefly touch upon it. It was, so Stepped Care and Stepped Care 2.0, I just want to point out, are two different things. Even though they use the same language, Stepped Care 2.0 allows for clients to enter the healthcare intervention at their point of readiness. In stepped care, it's typically a pretty linear model, but in stepped care 2.0, it's a jump in, jump out, jump over based on client needs, readiness, and preference. So Stepped Care 2.0 was developed by Peter Cornish here in Canada, out in Newfoundland. It's currently leading in system transformation because it arranges that treatment along a continuum of readiness. And it just simply redesigns what and how clients access services. So when we talk about that and redesigning what they're doing, again, it goes back to inviting clients to really understand their readiness and their preference. So just a quick example. So, somebody comes in to talk to our general information person, and they say, "I've been told I need intensive case management." Okay, fair enough. Maybe they do. That's a pretty high intense service that we provide. And many of you provide intensive case management services. So you know that that's a pretty intensive part. That's a higher up on the step of Stepped Care 2.0. They listen and we talk to them about maybe what's going on, what's the friction point of the day, what's prompted them to come in that day, what are they finding they need support in, and they say, well, I'm just lonely. I've been told that maybe being part of case management could help me get set up with, recreation programs or school. Well, interestingly enough, we also have evening social rec. We have drop-in programs. We have, different recovery college programs, which, spoiler alert, we'll get to later on. But it turns out after we talk to them that there's actually a huge volume of accessible services that they could join literally that day if they wanted to and satisfy some of that social isolation. And so they may still need intensive case management. They may still need that. But they can go ahead and apply and, move through the process of intake for intensive case management. But in the meantime, they can join all these other things that may help them at those lower barrier, um, uh, reduced steps on the model. And so then they might find that once they've come up on the wait list for intensive case management, they're like, well, actually, I'm doing pretty well. I've got some new friends. I'm going to coffee every once in a while with them. I've joined a book club. I'm making this up, but it's that kind of thing where if we offer clients service at the point of readiness as soon as possible, it may satisfy different needs, and that ends up being a person who doesn't take a spot of somebody else who really does need intensive case management services. So that's sort of how Stepped Care 2.0 can redesign how we access services. It's client-centric, it's evidence-based, it's responsive, based on recovery principles, and then it's also rooted in the collaborative care and decision-making. We did a lot of research on Stepped Care 2.0 before we launched into this, and we did find that they are equal to or even better at times than traditional treatment approaches. They're being recommended now to optimize those resources and increase access to services. But more importantly, and this is why we gravitated towards it really strongly, was that early observations suggested that it supported the elimination of service wait lists. That was a huge point for us. So the other thing that Stepped Care 2.0 does is that it helps to empower client autonomy, because there's absolutely clinical judgment and clinical support that helps people build out the decisions around what type of service they may want to join. But it also adds that layer of empower client autonomy. What would help you most? You and I, we all know that sometimes people may present with very active symptoms of their mental illness, but they might not be ready for DBT counseling yet. So, that may be down the road, but what they may need is something else just in the meantime. And so that gives them the option. The experts, so to speak, have all said this person needs DBT counseling. Fair, but the client might not be ready. So we give them access to other services in the meantime. So it promotes that responsibility, and then it ultimately builds resilience. And I'm just going to pass it over to Harrison to talk a little bit about our second player.
That's right, our second cast member here, peer support. A little bit about peer support. We are people who serve as emotional and practical support workers between two people who share a common experience, such as mental health challenge. And that's what makes us so unique. And I think that's what makes us so powerful, for lack of better words, is that people respond to those who have walked a similar road, A peer support worker has lived through that similar experience and is trained to support others. I'll get into that a little bit later. Peer supporters listen, they provide emotional support, and most importantly, we inspire hope. We are pretty much the core contributor to a person's recovery. Again, because of that shared experience, there's a relatability that often isn't there with other practitioners, I can say. So those with lived experience have a valid perspective because of that experience. We started peer support at CMHA in 2020 during the pandemic, which was a very precarious time, to be sure. It was recommended from the Hamilton Client and Family Council that this idea be birthed here at CMHA. We were initially seconded from Mental Health Rights Coalition, but soon grew to include a number of partners, and now are CMHA Hamilton employees, which is an amazing thing. This is 5 years later, having created an impact strong enough with the one-on-one work that we do, with the groups that we offer, and the outreach that we provide as well. And our slogan here at CMHA Peer Support Workers is because we've been there. We really feel that that is probably the most efficient way to sum up how our experience can help other people relate. And here we are. Here's our peer support team.
Looking all lovely.
Yeah, exactly. But all of us have, all of us identify with various lived experiences, from homelessness to incarceration and addictions, trauma, mental health challenges. And we did receive training. That's, I think, what pulls us apart from other people with lived and living experience. Again, something I'll get into a little bit later. And we serve as mentors as well. We are team participations in community of practice meetings, senior peers, and facilitators. We do follow peer values and a code of conduct. These are our core values of peer support and principles of peer practice that we learn in our peer support training. And there's plenty of professional development made available to us to make our portfolio that much more robust. Training includes ASSIST, naloxone training, working with Indigenous and marginalized populations, and so on.
Excellent. And our third and final actor is co-design. So again, a lot of you will know about co-design, but it's a collaborative approach where people with lived and living experience, along with families, caregivers, staff, content experts, are all situated as equal partners. Typically, when you're developing new services or products or systems, some of you will have co-designed before, but it really moves beyond that traditional top-down design. Because it includes the people with lived and living experience from the outset. In fact, a lot of times co-design, the idea of what to change next actually comes from people with lived and living experience. So not only are they involved from the outset, but they're actually the generators of the ideas. And the key principles, of course, sharing power, inclusive collaboration, and focusing on all the needs. But the one thing I really want to point out here, so Harrison is brilliantly laid out to you around our peer support program, and we want to keep them as a key player, of course. But the reason we wanted to introduce co-design is because when someone is a peer support worker, they are staff, and people with lived and living experience still have a different take on the services that they get. Staff, even peer support workers, will come potentially with a bias that a person with lived and living experience just won't. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to point out for us, the difference was it wasn't enough for us to have the peer support workers be the only player. That's why we went to co-design and brought in people with lived and living experience. And so, of course, this was a new concept. Uh, CMHA Hamilton had not done probably true co-design before. They'd absolutely done focus groups and client consultations. And as noted earlier, there is a robust client and family council who've absolutely had impact on decisions. But nothing had previous to this been co-designed. So it was a new concept. And you all know with new concepts, communication is key. So people were hesitant to co-design, to bring clients and families on as equal partners. And you know that that's come out of a stigma. Attached from the healthcare system has generated a stigma suggesting that clients and families may not be able to handle something like this, or the provider knows best. And we know that that's not true anymore. And we know we needed to get past that stigma. So it required communication. Staff meetings, team meetings, newsletter, working groups, etc., all serve to reduce that stigma and get our staff to welcome co-design. Further, we enlisted some outside support on human-centered design to help build out a better co-design model. And then lastly, and really crucially, we set aside money for honoraria. Best practice and evidence-based suggests that people with lived and living experience have an expertise that requires uh, um, a form of recognition, and that's typically in the form of honoraria. And so we really wanted to honor that and make sure we had that.
Okay, so I guess, keeping with the theme of stories and movies and novels, this is kind of more of a sneak peek slide. Um, After having come to CMHA, maybe 3 years into it or so, I was asked to help lead our Recovery College endeavor. Again, I'll get into what Recovery College is in a moment. Maybe some of you know already. But suffice it to say, this was a perfect fit for me in a number of ways. Not only did the college align with my background and education, but it offered me a different method of connecting with our clients. One that I feel fills those gaps in my own recovery that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Had I had, an outlet like this, pardon me, back in the day, I think I would have really flourished in a different way. So I'm really happy to be part of this idea that continues to blossom. And Recovery College is just crucial to building out those concepts of co-design and introducing it to the broader organization.
Excellent. All right, dim the lights, everybody. We're going to start the movie. We really wanted to start focusing in on this change, and we realized very quickly on that everybody was impacted or should be impacted somehow, some way. Clients, future clients, every staff, even our support staff, honestly, were going to be impacted because our finance team, for example, were impacted by ensuring that people got paid their honoraria, and understanding how to provide honoraria to someone who didn't have a bank account, for example, or who couldn't cash a check because they didn't have a bank account. Like, we had to really nuance all these different pieces. So what we did was we created 4 pillars for engagement. And they were measurement-based care. Some of you are utilizing measurement-based care as well, but we made sure that we had that as a way to engage in understanding and building out more ways that clients could understand where they sat in their own recovery. So where could they move up, out, in, or up, down, out, or in to different steps in their recovery. The Recovery College, of course, we'll get into that much more in depth. And one at a time counseling was a significant addition to our services so that people could access that who are on the wait list for ICM. People could walk in and utilize it. And then we also built out the concepts. So, stepped, not only was co-design unique for us, but stepped care 2.0 was unique. And it really meant a shift in the way our staff thought about intensive case management. So we're also working on finalizing our stepped case management guidebook for staff to reference when they need to think differently about their clients. So this was our first go at this.
Okay, so this is a fairly full slide here. I'll do my best to walk ourselves through it. Really, the key area that I'd like you to look at is the top centered green square under Step Care Advisory Committee. This is the advisory committee that oversaw all of the SC 2.0 projects that were being laid out, including measurement-based working group, step case management working group, recovery college, and 110 counseling. And a key element here is that the Step Care Advisory Committee included people with lived and living experience. And that is paramount to the decisions that were made, for implementation of the projects put forward. You also see here that the Recovery College Working Group has 3 more lines down on their flow chart, in that there were curriculum groups working very diligently at developing educational curriculum and pedagogy for the Recovery College. And this, again, was done with the people who lived and lived experience, often those people coming forward with the ideas themselves. They would make a proposal to the curriculum, to the working college, the Recovery College Working Group. And that proposal was then taken into consideration and finally brought forward into fruition, into actual curriculum development and classes. I think we offer now approximately 13 different classes, groups, and or trainings. And as I said, most of those were brainchilds of people with living experience themselves.
Yeah. And Harrison, can I just add one quick example of how the Stepped Care Advisory Committee was the final say? And this is where our people with lived and living experience made a significant impact. The Recovery College catalog was coming out, and the working group had, quote unquote, finalized the catalog. Everybody seemed happy with it. We stepped it up to the advisory committee, and our people with lived and living experience, our co-designers, took a look at it and said, we're going to make some changes here. And they provided some insight. They provided some reasoning for it, and it all made sense what they suggested. So we went back and we changed the catalog to reflect their thoughts and their decisions. And just a very small example of how the governance model of our change was fully co-designed.
So yeah, back to my narrative. As we discussed, we've got 3 players in this story: peers, co-design, and SC 2.0, that have been so validating for me here. I've met and now work with other peers and people with lived experience who have similar trajectories. We support one another now as we support clients as peer support workers, and the staff recognizes our value to the agency as well. CMHA's implementation of co-design was really exciting to me, as it was the perfect blend, as I said before, to my background and our current definition or our direction, empowering other people with lived and living experience. And basically it meant that there was no more gaps as far as I could see in terms of servicing. The mental health for all slogan that we live under is being made quite real because of this. As Mary Ellen described at the beginning of the presentation, people have much less barrier-free access to services. It's much more inclusive, and it really is our key to recovery.
Excellent. All right, our plot. You know, one of the ways we wanted to ensure that the co-design project succeeds, that we've learned, is to really ensure that all the plot points are aligned. So your characters, your setting, your scenery, all align. So let's walk through how that happened. So the Stepped Care 2.0 principles and values, we're just going to quickly walk through these slides and then show you the final one that really captures all of these. But basically, you'll see these principles and values come up, and they're also very well aligned to HSJCC and CMHAs in general, but certainly person-centered, co-design for best outcome. And then when we move into the peers and people lived and living experience, Harrison, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, I think that it's becoming clearer and clearer that there's a direct relationship between the peers and people with living experience. It may seem enough to have peer support workers that work for your organization to be the only voice of people with lived and living experience, but you know, while we have been trained to do our job, there could be still some bias towards the agency, whereas people with lived and living experience have a very unique voice. They were given this because they're currently living through the services or lack thereof, and they see things from a completely different perspective that is often more honest, not more honest, but
Maybe, yeah.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, excellent. And again, our co-design, the values and principles of co-design. So how do they all align? They all share these values and principles. And so what we learned with the project was that when you sit back and you envision how and what to set the stage and how to build out the players, when they all align, you'll see. How did it go? So the final act really came down to the Recovery College, and we're going to take a quick deep dive into that now.
Yeah, let's look at our main star here, the Recovery College. The Recovery College it encompasses all of the principles and values of co-design and are integral to increasing access, decreasing barriers, and providing alternatives to other types of interventions. So what we do here is we take an educational approach to mental health and recovery. There's so much I could say about this, but I'll try and keep it brief. It's very exciting. We offer recovery-oriented approaches to learning, anything from employability to building healthy relationships to a class that we've got on movement and emotion called Emotion, and the list goes on. It's an open access model with the building blocks of recovery being connectedness, hope and optimism, identity, meaning, and empowerment, which is our TRINE framework. Again, I could go further into that, but as an introductory piece, that's it's what we hang our hat on. And we afford opportunities for clients to step in the intensity of their care up or down based on their readiness or preference. So again, this is an opportunity for people to come into the agency barrier-free and start that socialization piece. Yeah, easily.
Yeah. And so what we want to do next is we want to stop talking and let other people share their thoughts on this.
So I designed the Building Healthy Relationships course with Recovery College. The course is about different aspects of how to make your relationship healthier in relationships with anybody, whether it be romantic or friendship or family, discuss topics like trust and boundaries and our values, self-compassion. The course came to be because I was working with a client who was asking me about a course like this. She wanted to be part of a healthy relationships course. So I tried looking for one around the city and I couldn't find anything. So I handed in a proposal to Recovery College to kind of build this course. We discussed having a co-design person with me to make the course. I asked my client if she'd be interested. She was, on her way to becoming a peer support worker and a social service worker. So she was really excited to be part of something like this. And so she said yes. We designed the course together. I found it very valuable to have her lived experience. I felt like it made the course really authentic. The information was more accurate and I was more confident in the information we were providing because I had that lived experience behind me. And for her, I think that she had a lot of value as somebody with lived experience in recovery. I feel like it built up her confidence a lot to be able to share her knowledge and story with people. Now that I've facilitated this with my co-designer once, I've seen the way that her lived experience benefits the students. She has shared her story of why this material is relevant to her and her background. So they know that right at the beginning. And she shares her story periodically throughout the course. I feel like people really connect with it and it's not kind of top-down learning that you're used to in school. I feel like people connect a lot more when they know that like the authenticity and genuineness behind the material is coming from somebody who's lived it. Yeah, I think that just having the rapport with the person that you're co-designing with and the trust there, because I wanted this course to be truly co-designed, I ran everything past my co-designer. If I came up with an idea, I wanted her to okay it. And I think that our mutual relationship, there was enough trust there where she was able to voice her honest opinions about things. So I think that having done the research, I brought the research to the table, but then also her lived experience was like very much a part of the co-design. So I think having equal parts evidence-based research and then also the lived experience coming together was the way to make it the true co-design experience. She was a part of every step along the way. So I think that's how to make it good.
And that was Samantha. And we're just going to hear from Steph now.
Hello, I'm Stephen McCormick. I was co-creator with Emotion, co-created with Joss. It was a course where we put our emotions into movement. So sometimes it can be hard for people to kind of express how they feel. Maybe we're not really connected with our emotions. We don't really feel where our emotions are in our body. We just have to from our bodies as well. And so Emotion was designed to kind of bring that together so that we can feel our emotions as well as express our emotions through movement. Some of the things that were great about co-creating with Joss, and they really had an expertise on dance, they had an expertise on movement, and really were able to bring the curriculum so that we were able to incorporate our bodies. I was able to bring kind of knowledge into kind of the scientific aspect of things or the more educational things where we're talking about like how the body functions with the different hormones, different chemicals and stuff, and how that creates our emotions. Whereas Joss is really able to bring that creative side to it and, yeah, put some creativity into emotion, which is really what it was all about. Getting creative and feeling your emotions. I think to kind of make sure that the course was genuine is we really made sure Joss had a really strong plan when they came to us with the idea. And so we were really able to kind of stick to that outline whilst putting in that educational aspect and just making course so we're able to kind of cover different modules, activities for each module, how they could interact with each other. I mean, we were always sure to make sure that Joss was incorporated in anything that we did. Any decision was kind of all three of us, including Harrison. We really sat down and we talked about it and we made sure that everyone was happy about it. There was no kind of steamrolling over anyone. We just wanted to make sure that everyone was happy with it. Yeah, so I think it was really a genuine process. I think it turned out quite well. There's times when maybe one of us couldn't make it for a lesson, so the other person was able to hop in. We knew enough about everything to work around any bumps in the road that come up.
Excellent. And those two courses are still running and still two of our favorites.
Yeah, this is an illustration of the hero's journey that's typically laid out for people who write stories or movies, etc. Our inciting incident, as we discussed, was, peer support being introduced to CMHA Hamilton, and then, climax probably in and around when we decided that we needed a SC 2.0 shift, and lots of falling action there, lots of things that happened, not to sound like it was a negative thing, but there's lots of inner workings that have to be done to make it all happen. And I think now I'm sitting at the kind of resolution of the story myself personally. It's nothing short of inspiring to be part of an agency that empowers its clients, its community, and not only to contribute their knowledge base, but also have multiple options of accessible care too.
Amazing. So, the end, sort of. We are not here to sell you on SC 2.0, really and truly. But what we really wanted to sell you on in terms of coming to the movie was the idea that we need to increase access to particularly our HSJCC population. We also wanted to impress, hopefully, upon you that the largest scale change, and like again, this impacted every single department of our organization, every single staff, every client would be somehow connected to it. Future clients would be, but it can all be done through co-design, particularly if you have the right actors, the right directors, the right scene specialists, the best camera crew, the right, all that stuff that makes good movies. You know that when it works, when the components and the principles and the values all align, it's a movie you want to see again and again. So, did it work? Of course, yes, it did. We launched our One at a Time Counseling Center and Recovery College to the public. 90% of our direct care staff have complete measurement-based care with clients. And we have that near completion of understanding intensive case management in a way that builds in those stepped care 2.0 guidelines, values, and principles. We do have a research project coming out soon that's going to share our outcomes of our co-design process. And, I'm hoping it's a spoiler alert that the outcomes are positive, but we shall see. But really, that's what we wanted to try to get people to walk into that movie theater with us and really think about how to elicit co-design, how to utilize co-design in the biggest scale change possible. So, Sarah, we have one more poll. So now that you've heard the story of our movie, do you think co-design will enhance your large-scale project? This is Harrison and I were talking yesterday. This is where you need Jeopardy music or something to go in the background, light jazz, as he would say.
Like that, exactly.
Amazing. Well, I'm really glad to see that most people are saying yes. I really appreciate the people who are still not sure. I get that. I would argue for sure that people, even at CMHA Hamilton, are still not completely, we don't have a complete sell on co-design and how that really enhances or can improve a large scale change. Totally get that. And in fact, we want to gravitate towards hearing the reasons why people are still unsure, because sometimes, when we start these projects, we may forget something. So, thank you for that. And do we need to share the results, or I think the results are up there? Okay, I can't hear anybody. Were you talking, Sarah? Sorry.
I was not, but
Okay.
results should be there for people to see.
Okay, okay. Thank you all for sharing sharing your thoughts on that. And we can stop sharing that now. And honestly, now it's time for questions. And I will stop sharing my screen and see if anybody has any questions for Harrison and I. But thank you so much for joining us as we walk through our movie of the day.
We did have a question come in at one point asking if the peer support workers are funded or if it's a volunteer position.
Oh, yeah, great. Harrison, feel free to take that one if you want.
Sure. Yeah. No, we are funded. We are staff here at CMHA.
Great.
Yeah, the difference probably again is that people with lived and living experience who come in as co-designers are
Mm.
provided honoraria. People who are hired and paid as peer support workers are on the payroll. Yeah. Great
Okay.
question. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate the storytelling you provided on co-design. Can you talk a little bit about the available services within the Step Care 2.0 continuum beyond the Recovery College / peer support offerings?
Yes, so we do have the one at a time counseling service. We do have our evening social rec. We have drop in and smart recovery. We are, to be fair, still trying to build out more services because, as you can imagine, people need more and more as they come in. It's also where we partner with other organizations and agencies because they become part of our stepped care 2.0 model. So it's not just landing on CMHA Hamilton to provide everything for everybody. We know that would be impossible, but it's really also how we activate and work alongside of our partners to do that. So, something as simple as even the YMCA or the YWCA becomes something we might want to consider as we talk to people about what else could they offer or what else could they access. Yeah. Thank you.
Our next question is, has the shift to Step Care 2.0 led to a difference in the way referrals are made?
I don't think so. We get our intensive case management service referrals through our intake, our centralized intake service. I think where Stepped Care 2.0 really comes into play is more at the point of general information, walk-ins, calls to find out about our programming, where we can offer a wider range of programming. So, so the referral system to intensive case management hasn't changed. However, our intake coordinator does have conversations with people who come into intake, who have applied to intake, and suggests or offers them the idea of our other services. So that's where her philosophy has shifted to SC 2.0 in terms of, enacting that broader range of what else could you consider, or what else might be of interest at the point of your readiness and your preference and your need.
A great example of how you still navigate the external factors of centralized intake, but your internal processes have shifted to
Right.
a different approach.
Yes.
There's nothing else in the Q&A right now, so I'll maybe open it up
Yeah.
if anyone wants to raise a hand or unmute and ask
sure.
a question.
And maybe while we're, oh, sorry, Sarah, were you?
Oh, I was curious as to, this is like a years-long process you're speaking to and summing up so wonderfully
Yeah,
for
actually
us.
almost 2 years now. 2 years
Yeah.
from almost the time of start date
Mhm.
to us going live. We went live on October 1st for the external facing pieces.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
How have you navigated like keeping engagement and momentum through the process?
Yeah, it has definitely it will definitely see that ups and downs. Communication has helped. We so if we go back to that one slide around communication, there is we made sure at all team meeting, all staff meeting, at team meetings, through our, we have a video that runs in our waiting room. Our website has communication and information now. But really, I think if I were to be honest, a lot of the momentum came from building out those working groups, because those working groups actually encompassed people from across the organization. We tried to get someone from every department on every working group so that they could go back with excitement, with energy to their teams and be champions. So the working groups really encompassed a wide range of players and stakeholders. And then that fed into, of course, the Stepped Care Advisory Committee that also had a wide range of stakeholders. But really, it was about that, reminding people that this wasn't our project. This was our project. This wasn't a top-down project. This was a full encompassing thing. Often at staff meetings or team meetings, for example, if I was present as a director at a team meeting, I was not the one to provide the update. It was the person who was on the working group who provided the update, so it came from them. And that's, don't get me wrong, we had waxes and wanes for sure, but I believe we kept up the momentum a lot through that.
Thanks. And we had another question come in. What is the honorarium and how do recipients utilize it? Or are there any parameters on that?
Yeah, great question. And there are a number of different websites out there that talk about honoraria. We went with about $25 an hour for direct work related to the project. Definitely the co-designer, the person with lived and living experience, could weigh in on how they might want to receive that. Some people were able to accept cash. Some people definitely wanted it through gift cards. So we provided some different options, and honoraria is technically intended to offset costs and provide some recognition of their expertise. So how they utilized it was up to them, but it was intended to sort of offset parking costs or gas costs also to get there. I hope that helps answer that.
Thank you. And with that, we're coming up to 12 noon. So thank you again to our presenters and everyone who participated today and for the questions that you shared. We're going to be taking an hour's break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1. We have a lunchtime session that is starting at 12:15, going till 12:45, called What Do We Keep Missing About Addiction? And following lunch at 1 p.m., please join us for the keynote panel, Collaborating for Change, Disrupting Homelessness and Justice Involvement. To join the keynote session, you can click on the agenda link on the menu bar and then click the join button for our keynote panel presentation. And then our B series concurrent sessions will follow after the afternoon break at 3 p.m. And you can click on agenda in the platform and choose session B series that you would like to join, and then you just click the join button. We would also appreciate if anyone could take a few moments to complete our session evaluation as well as the conference evaluation. The conference evaluation, you can click on the evaluation icon on the conference homepage in the menu bar. Your feedback's anonymous, very appreciated, and we use it to plan future events such as this one. So thank you everyone again for joining us. Thank you, Harrison and Mary Ellen, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.